Mhm.
Hello, everybody. Today I'm very fortunate because I'm talking to a young lady called Kay Reeve, and she's written a book called Brain Unchained. And I'm intrigued to know, Kay, why did you call your book Brain Unchained?
Yes, thank you. It's lovely to speak to you today, Dawn. My book is actually named jointly between myself and my son, and it's based off the back of a journey that he went through because he suffered 12 years of depression and suicidality throughout that 12 years. And there was a lot of therapies and strategies that we tried, including like exercise and diet and counseling and various personal development techniques. So we tried all sorts throughout those years, but everything seemed to still leave him in a state that was worse than when we'd started. You'd have good moments and bad moments,
Yeah.
but at 19 years old, he was in a really, really difficult state emotionally. And I needed to find a way to help him through. And that's kind of where the strategy in the book came from. And the title, so just to hold it up so everybody can see, Brain Unchained, the title was, once I'd completed the book, I still didn't have the title. I knew roughly the concept that I wanted.
Yeah.
And it was like, people tell teenagers there's light at the end of the tunnel, or you can get through it, or you just got to do it yourself, you can get through it. And people tell them there's light at the end of the tunnel using all these sticky plaster quotes, as I call them. So it's like having a broken leg and putting a sticky plaster on it and say, that would be okay tomorrow. And we know it won't. So to me, just throwing these quotes and phrases at them without truly listening to what they're going through and seeing what help they need is equivalent of sticky plaster quotes.
Okay.
And so after we'd come through his journey and he'd recovered, and then I wrote the book, I said to him, I want the book to reflect not the fact that you were stuck in a depression at one end of this tunnel or that there was light at the other. I said, but I want to know what it was like from his point of view in the middle of that tunnel when he started to sense that freedom and realize there was hope. And he described it as having had chains wrapped around his head, like his brain. And as he started to improve and feel better, it was like the chains all fell away.
Yeah.
And that was where the term Brain Unchained came from. So,
Okay, brilliant. Okay,
yeah.
so thank you, Kay. And I'm just so grateful for you being here today. And we don't get often
Bless
a
me
chance
too.
to chat, and I haven't really had a chance to look at your book yet, and I'm really intrigued because I know there was a special reason for you writing this book. It wasn't just about depression, because your son is unique, special child, isn't he?
Oh, yes. But yes, I know what you mean. Yeah, he definitely is. But I'll say that in the comical way first. He understands me. Yes, my son was diagnosed with Asperger's as well. He was diagnosed at age 8. So he was 7 years old before I'd even heard of it. But the first time I'd ever said to my mum, I knew about autism, but I didn't know about the in-between spectrum with Asperger's.
Yeah.
And the first time I actually said to my mum, it's almost as if he's autistic,
Yeah.
not knowing how close I was with that, was when he was just 10 weeks old.
Oh, bless you.
I could not believe it when I found out that is actually what he was struggling with. That was how strong my intuition had been so early on. And there was all this big media thing at the time about how it was caused by the MMR vaccines and this and that. And I was like, no, it's not, because he had it long before the MMR vaccine.
Yeah.
And I can see those signs. But for a lot of people, they find it very difficult to spot that.
Yeah.
But so having the Asperger's, that added to the stress, the anxiety, the depression, the suicidality.
Yeah.
And by the time he was a teenager, he was just struggling even with concepts like remembering what day of the week it was, or telling time, or counting money. And I'm like, well, how on earth am I supposed to teach him to manage emotions when it's this massive invisible concept?
Yeah.
You can't see it. And I thought, that's it. I need something I can show him. So that's when I came up with the emotional cycle diagram. And it took me about a year to work through the colours, and I started talking to him in terms of colours. And I came up with this diagram. It's not very bright on there. So yellow, blue, red, and black.
Okay.
So this diagram, as I started to realise, everything we talk about in happy emotions is we talk about as higher emotions.
Yeah.
Whereas black and depression, we talk about as being a low mood or a low emotion.
Yes.
We say somebody feels a bit blue today when they're a bit sad. And we talk about anger as red rag to a bull.
Yeah.
And everything, there are over 6,000 emotions listed in the English dictionary, but we don't need to know all of those. And a child who's struggling with, or teenager struggling with depression and suicidality and anxiety and overwhelm and anger doesn't need to know all of those words. He just needed to know how he felt.
Yeah, brilliant. Well
and
done.
he needed a map to know where he was,
Yes.
which emotion he was in, what had changed to put him there, and what changes he could make to get back to the place he wanted to be. And
Excellent.
That's where that came from.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So as a mum, obviously you were concerned about something that your son was going through. So what were the traits that you were noticing?
Well, a lot over the years. I mean, with the Asperger's side, to start with, he was just not joining in with other children. He was mostly going off the bathroom and playing in the sink with the water, or playing in the sand. He was playing with quite tactile stuff, but it just generally, he just didn't seem to have a very good attention span around other people. But I hadn't twigged at that point the relevance of that. I just knew he was just not interacting in the same way. I noticed, and it sounds really odd, even when he was like 2 years old and my daughter was 4, it was things like, hang on a minute, something different here. My daughter is constantly trying to get my attention. Mummy, look at this. Mummy, look at that. Yeah. I'm trying to get my son's attention. Matthew, pay attention to me. Look at this. Look at that. And it was, I was like, hang on. So one child's trying to get my attention, but I'm trying to get the others. And it was like, it just seemed back to front. And so there was lots of things over time, and everything that he played with was, he had a particular thing in mind and was quite obsessive about it. Like everything was as a ball or a bat. And like one day he picked up a toy orange and a toy mobile phone, and I thought, oh good, he's actually going to play with something sensibly today. And then he went threw the ball, the orange up, and battered it with the phone, and I was like, okay, maybe not, you know. And then language development, and there was a lot of other things. He cried a lot, even from a young baby. He was very, very internally, almost aggressively crying from a young age. Like if you wanted to pick him up and cuddle him, he didn't like being cuddled, and as much as some days he could be really cuddly and really huggy and really, you know, like a normal child, but other days no. And there were just so many things. And then he started to get nervous tics in the eye, and or he'd start coughing and clearing his throat, and other things. And it was just, and every time the teacher said, oh, he's doing this or doing that, they said, we're doing individual educational plan, and we'll do the star charts, and we sort of get rid of that behaviour. And then there's another behaviour came in, and another, and by the time we'd gone through about 4 or 5 behaviours, we went back and started again, like excessive crying. And I was like, hang on a minute, we're not actually curing anything with these. All we're doing is going through a cycle and replacing one with another. I said, I need more information. But by the time he was 9 years old, school had just traumatized him so much that I had to take him out of school altogether and teach him at home. So
well, bless you, Kay, and well done for listening to what your child's needs were.
Thank you. It was difficult when I didn't understand it, and so much of it was intuition, but never underestimate your intuition. It's just there for a reason.
I think especially as a mum with their children, you get a gut feeling that something needs to be changed or something's not right. That word change is so important. Absolutely. So if we're talking about your son now, how do you feel like what the system that you put into place, because I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit more about the book and how it came, you know, what it means to you and how it can help others, but how do you think it helped your son?
Well, immensely, to be honest. To start with, it was just having that connection with him at a point where he was, you know, we were on the point almost of admitting him for clinical help. I had the phone in my hand one evening to go and take him to the hospital and say, he needs help, you know. But we sat down and started talking in terms of these colours. So first thing is, it gave us a hope, and it gave us a strategy to focus on. So it wasn't just mum throwing random suggestions and quotes and, oh, you should do this, you should do that. It was about sitting down and listening to him. So first of all, understanding the strategy of this, or as I was developing it, I didn't, you know, from my point of view, I was having to develop it as I go. But from somebody else's point of view, understanding that emotional cycle in terms of colour meant I had something that I could show him and say, right, let's talk about these colours. I always get in a muddle when I have the round one, sorry. Let's do it with the book, it's easier. I get used to this one. So it was like saying happy, you know, what does it mean to him? What words would he use? What feelings would he notice in his body? And what would that mean to him in his world? And it was about giving me the tools to look at that, understand what it means in terms of the emotional cycle, but listen to his view of the emotional cycle.
Okay.
And then same with the other colours, the angry, the depressed, the sad. And then we have the ability to say, okay, so this took a little while, obviously, for me to put this together in my head and realise, actually, this is the human emotional cycle. This is the pattern of everything everybody says and does across the universe. It's just worldwide. And so it's in, right, okay, so the only way we change between one emotion and another is because something changed. So if something's made you sad today, what changed? Is it something that happened in the outside world, or something that's happened in you, in your own head, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, etc.? So it was looking at what changed, something external or something internal, and then looking at what changes he could make to reverse that process. And that was literally, to begin with, I didn't even have this diagram. I just had the 4 colours. And then we talked about change in terms of orange. So it was like a square box. It looked like a battery with positive at the top and negative at the bottom when I first did it. Whereas now positive still at the top, because obviously happy is positive and depression is negative down here. But wherever you are on here, any movement upwards is positive. So you might feel you're in depression, and they say you have to work up through your problems, or you face up to your problems, for example. So facing up to your problems might mean working through things, or it will mean working through whatever it is that made you sad or angry. So you've got to work through those to get to happy. But it was just recognizing that actually sometimes even that feeling of anger or feeling of sadness can be a positive thing, so long as he's working in the right direction through them. And just helping him to acknowledge that he didn't have to run away from all his emotions, but to embrace them. And he changed so rapidly from there. He changed so quickly just with this understanding that it was beyond anything I could have dreamed for him. And now, well, completely different young man now.
Okay, brilliant. Well done, Kay. So I'm just processing in my head, because I think that would be quite nice to do a little video and me putting myself, maybe do it separately from this one, Kay, where I'll put myself in a state of mind where I'm concerned about something, and then you could maybe talk me up through that wheel.
Okay, yeah, I get that. That sounds like a nice challenge. Nice challenge. I like a challenge. a nice exercise, I should say, is the right word.
Because I think sometimes it's nice to see something done visually. So that we can actually get a greater comprehension of what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you've put a lot of work into what you've done, and obviously you've had great results, not only with your son but with other people as well. And I think to be able to share this with children who are special children and with their parents would give them a greater understanding of how they can support their child, or how they can support themselves.
And I think that's the really important part there, is how they can support their child. Because me discovering Asperger's and my son's depression, and because he first attempted suicide at the age of 8, and there was no support for that. I went to the school and said, please be careful, my son today, he's fragile. He tried to commit suicide yesterday, because and the teacher turned around and said, oh, kids say funny things, completely dismissed me. And that was the kind of battle I had at school, which is like being overlooked. Oh, kids with worse problems are him, and all of that. So sometimes the best person to help a child is the parent. You know them best. You know their every ins and outs and traits. And even if you go to doctors and psychologists, I've spent months and months trying to get my son to a psychologist. For her to sit there within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and listen to him. But listen to him on a day when he was in denial, saying, oh, I haven't got a problem, mum's making it all up. And I tried to speak and she wouldn't let me speak. And she dismissed him and said, I don't need to see you anymore.
Oh my gosh.
That was it. We lost all lifeline of help, because that was like the final leg of help that we could have got for him as a psychologist. And she was a young, not being rude or anything, but she was sort of a younger psychologist. And she just like focused on my son. He was 15 years old. He was suicidal. He was depressed. He was angry. And he sat there having a slightly better day that day and just said, no, mum's making it all up.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that is.
I know the feelings that go with it from, so all of this understanding the emotional cycle here, I understand it from a parent's point of view. It's not just about your child's emotions, it's about your own as well. And other members of the family who are also living with this. It's about all of you. Yeah.
So where did you go from there, Kay? Because you must have lost hope then.
At that time, it was feeling very, very hopeless, and we had nothing. And for the next 5 years, well, he was no, I think he was about 13. He was about 13, sorry, when I went for that appointment. And it wasn't until he was 18 that we got any more help at all. So I had to still struggle with his depression and his emotions and his stress for the next 5 years without any support at all.
Okay.
So,
well,
because we weren't in the education system, we were home educating, so we had no support from the education system. You don't get any financial support at all once you take your child out of the educational system. So that there was all the financial stress on top. So yeah, it was a case of just never giving up hope. Just never give up. Always keep looking for the answer. Never give up. And that was the only thing that kept going through my head. Never give up. Never give up. But so it wasn't until he was about 18, 19. When he was he was 18. We then got to a point I did give up. But in a kind of way, a different way. I gave up the approach that we were taking. When he said to me one day, he said, my problems are my problems, and I'm not taking them outside this house. And he got really angry with me. Like, he was like fuming angry, like something off the Hulk movies, you know. It was like, and he was taller than me by then, and I knew he was quite strong. It was like, you don't restrain a 15, 18-year-old who's in a Hulk mode, you know, like you do an 8-year-old who's having a temper tantrum like a 2-year-old. By this time you're on a whole different level. So the only choice you've got is your words. You know, it's not like a 2-year-old who's going to run out in the road and you can just restrain them. You're on a level where your words are your only weapon, but they've got to be a weapon of kindness. But he just got to this point. I said, I'm not taking my problems outside this house. But he wouldn't do anything. Nothing we did helped. And I threw him out. And it sounds awful saying that now. And I don't want parents to get to that point. Where I got to the point, I threw him out, and we managed to get him into a hostel. So he had 24/7 support. And he still went downhill even more. He got even worse. And things got worse. How did you feel about that, Kay? Got him with the wrong crowd. So pretty guilty. Pretty guilty. Even, you know, you think you feel helpless and hopeless at the point throwing him out, doing that, but it gave me some space to kind of rebuild that connection with him. And I think it was much needed space in reflection. But my goodness, believe me, there was a lot of very difficult emotions go through seeing him then get in with the wrong crowds, doing the wrong things, and getting even worse emotionally, to the point he was like on borderline psychosis. He was hallucinating again. He was hearing things. I was terrified every single day if he's going to come in a wooden box, or I'm going to get called to say he's behind bars. And that's how I was living my life day to day, with the fear of that phone ringing. And but again, it was just never give up hope. Don't give up. Don't give up. And it was like somewhere inside this stranger's body, as it appeared then, I was losing sight of my son. But I knew I had to do something to get him back. And that was where it was. So it was just a moment of inspiration. I suddenly went, oh, the colours. And this is odd, but I'd seen his emotions as these colours for years. But I'd never really comprehended what it meant. And like when we say, you know, everyone's happy and the sun's shining, or stuck in a rut, when we say people like stuck in the darkness, you know, like dark days, or red rag to a bull, blue is tears and air is thoughts, and what it was. And it was actually what my brain had done was subconsciously converted the language of emotions in my mind into these colours. So I saw his emotions as colours. But I'd never interpreted it beyond that. It was just when he was in a really extreme level of any mood, I saw colour, almost like a synesthesia thing. But it wasn't until he was 18, I suddenly thought, oh, let's start talking about this to him. And I started talking to him about those colours. And that's when I recognised this pattern about yellow being, your high emotions on top of the world, blah, blah, blah. And the blue and the red, left and right, is like fight or flight. Do you go that way? Do you go that way? You know, it's like, and depression. And I thought, actually, there is a pattern to this. And that's where the diagram came from it. And then I realised, hang on a minute, nobody's ever done this. Nobody's ever drawn a picture of the emotional cycle like that in terms of the language. And then I
Okay.
started to realize it's more than just the language we use or how we feel, because
Yes.
we feel high mood, low mood. We talk about it in high mood, low mood. When you're excited, your voice goes up, yay. And if you're miserable, it goes down. So
Yeah.
that high and low is your voice as well, and your body language. And it's like, hang on a minute, it covers everything. And I thought, nobody's ever done this. It's like, why me? Now what do I do with it?
Wow. So from there, Kay,
So,
I can imagine that felt like suddenly a lift of hope in there. How
yes,
how did
tremendously.
you how did you approach this with your son then? How did that start to transform things for him?
Well, for first thing is we started to talk every single day,
Yeah.
and I was going to see him 2 or 3 times a week, and we'd sit and talk through the colours, his emotions, what changed. And it just initially it was more not so much about him understanding anything more than the 4 basic colours
Yeah.
and the concept of change. For him initially, it was just having those colours. But for me, it gave me a set of tools that when I was listening to him,
Yeah.
I was thinking in terms of the colour, listening for what he was talking about that had changed. Um, it gave me the ability to question him, what changed for negative, what changes he can make for the positive, to put suggestions to him, not to tell him what to do, he's just got to go and sort his own life out. But it actually gave me the power to use this as the map to say, okay, where is he today? Which bit is he on? Which bit
Yeah.
does he want to be at? Because we might want to be happy, but taking action more towards motivation. We might want to be happy, but feeling calm. So you might want to be in a different place. So it was about realizing where he is, where he wants to be, and using that map to almost like talk him through the directions back to being happy.
Okay.
And but he very quickly went from being very aggressive and angry, and me sometimes, because I was very often going down there and talking to him for 2 or 3 hours at a time to get him out of a depression.
Yeah.
When he was feeling suicidal or very, very angry or something, and it would be 2 or 3 hours. And then literally within a couple of months, he rang me one day and said, "Oh, I've just talked myself out of one today in 10 minutes."
Oh wow.
And it was like, whew, it was like huge,
Wow.
huge weight off my shoulders
Yeah.
to hear that.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
yeah, and then a friend of his walked into the cafe one day. We were having a cup of coffee, and his friend sat down beside him and said to me, "I've realised that hanging around with Matt makes me a better person."
Oh my gosh.
I was like,
Wow.
bing, light bulb. I need to do something with this.
Yeah.
Because at that point, with that one sentence, made this about more than just me and my son and our relationship.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And yeah.
Wow.
So excuse me, sorry, I've got a really, really tickly itch. Excuse me.
It's okay.
You can see me tickling there.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's fascinating. That from an insight which you'd seen, you could then turn it into a healing tool for him.
Yeah, and that was the thing. It did made a huge healing
Yeah.
tool. But the biggest thing is for me as a parent, it gave me a tool
Yes.
to support him through everything going forward.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is I realized, because then that's a big thing that came out of it when I want to write the book and start the business. There was a lot of questioning. Well, who do you think you are to do that? You're not a doctor, you're not a counselor, you're not a psychotherapist, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And it took me a while to get the confidence to say, do you know what? No, I'm not. I'm a mum.
Yeah.
But that was all I needed to save my son's life.
Wow.
And that's all I needed to help my son through, was to be a mum who never gave up, and a set of tools.
Yeah.
I could have done with a manual. I had to write my own, but the manual's now there for other people to use.
Yeah. And that's such a powerful message, Kay. So well done, though. Well
Thank
done.
you.
And where can we get hold of a copy of your book?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on Brain Unchained on Amazon. Again, I should put that up so you can see the title and the cover. So Brain Unchained. And it's shining a torch on depression and lighting the way to emotional awareness in teenagers and young adults. And again, my name there. Right. So yeah, it's on Amazon. Just look up the title, or it's on my website. The website links back to Amazon, yes. But there's more information about it and about our backstory and what it can do. And that's on my website, which is kayreeve.co.uk.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Kay. And is this something that you plan to do as like mini workshops for the future, or where are you taking
yes,
this?
I will be doing. Yeah. I think for me, I think the way I ideally want to take this is to put workshops online on a video series where people can follow through them at their own pace.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if anybody does want help, and support. I do one-to-one mentoring as well. So it's just a case of contact me through the website, or look me up on social media. I'm mostly on Facebook and LinkedIn, but just a case of find it. All the links are on the website, and just get in touch, and I can do one-to-one as well.
Okay, thank you, Kay. That is so inspirational, and I look forward to chatting with you again, because I'm going to process what you've been talking about, because I know several clients who I think would benefit from what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
I think for me, it's been able to offer them new opportunity that they can get a greater understanding of themselves.
Yeah. And it's amazing because the understanding of the emotional cycle underpins everything else. It's not like competing with other strategies or other self-help and development processes. It's like oxygen. To me, it's like oxygen for the mind, because we can go for weeks without food, we can go for days without water, and we can go for minutes without air, but we barely go seconds without an emotion. And I think a lot of people just don't think of that in terms of, if we are using emotions as much as we're using oxygen, and our body can't survive without water, why is this not a curriculum topic? Why is this not a standard subject we are taught to understand?
I totally agree.
And the simple answer is they didn't have a way to show it. Because it's like you teach time on a clock. Time is invisible, but you teach it on a clock. But there wasn't a way to convert emotions into, like, here's a diagram of what it actually looks like. So to start with younger children and teach them, psychology and counselling and all that you study as you're more mature. But from, I could even show this to a 5-year-old and talk to them about their emotions. So without this diagram and that simple strategy, it was very difficult to say, here's emotional awareness, So my ultimate dream is, a few years down the line, is it will be in a few more schools. We'd like to get it into schools, but
well, I've got a feeling it could
out.
be, and sooner than you think, Kay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Because I think there is a lot of very special children, and I think these children have come through with the natural talent to support other people, but when we can support them, then they have that hidden gift inside them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It just needs somebody to empower them and believe in them.
Oh, absolutely. I totally get it. And I'm going to put you in touch with a lady called Aisha, who I think, her son is also autistic.
And thank you.
She couldn't, I'm trying to think about the process. She couldn't get the help and access the support that she needed through school. So she decided to set up an app for children with special needs.
Oh, wow.
So I will put you in touch with her, because I think what you're offering, Kay, and is priceless. It gives parents hope. It gives them an alternative way of looking at things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Me, anything that's natural, because I love working with the remedies and natural healing, but it's like, this is different. This is something new to explore. And I think sometimes, if you've got something new to explore, that is a gift that you're offering, that it can't be accessed somewhere else.
No, that's the one thing I can say about this, is it is nowhere else. It is unique. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. It literally is. It's something I've created in terms of, I didn't create the emotional cycle, but it was, and it looks so simplistic looking at it on the diagram, but it was the amount of research I had to do to think, actually, that is where it all fits. And I spent a year developing that emotional cycle diagram, and then I spent another year trying to bust it apart, because I thought, well, if I can break it, there's not much point sharing it. And I did spend another year studying emotions to try and break my strategy, and all I ended up doing was actually growing it. So that is actually, to just briefly show, there are 3 parts to the strategy. That is what I call the mood mentor model now. So we've got the emotional cycle, see your emotions, that's this bit. And then I break it down. So the orange, where I talked about all the inner and outer change, the orange outside and inside, that's now broken down into a second strategy, which is understanding there are only 5 changes in the whole world. And it's looking at things from a more simplistic point of view, starting from the beginning. And then the final one was recognizing there's only 5 root causes to everything. So if every change that happens is only one of 5 changes and has only one of 5 root causes, it gives you a really solid starting point for working through any problem for life. But it's done in such a way it should support them from you know, even from somebody struggling with the depths of depression, there should be something in there to help support them.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
definitely
Yeah.
for the parents is supportive, because even parents, like I said, we're all going through stress and anxiety when our children are feeling like that, and
Yeah.
if not, then they're probably not going to be looking for this book if they don't feel like that.
No. But yeah, I think
yeah.
you know, as a parent, you know, if your child needs extra support, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to process that. It's going to take me a little while to get my head around, you know, and think about what you're doing. And I'd like to get a copy of your book as well, Kay. But,
Yeah, certainly we'll sort that out for you.
yeah, thank you. Can I just ask, Kay, was your son on medication?
No, never. Oh,
No.
he did try some once, and he tried
Yeah.
it for a few days, I think, but he
Yes.
had a bit of a reaction to it, so he wouldn't try anymore.
Okay.
So yeah, we, because of the Asperger's, it's like all the ADHD type medicines, you know, other medication would never help with the Asperger's.
Yeah.
But it was all the sensory overload, because the
Yes.
difficulty with sensory modulation that was causing a lot of overwhelm, and then
Yes.
Also obsessive thinking,
Yeah.
and also feeling like he was different, like people didn't accept him for who he was,
Yes.
like he didn't fit in, and the whole, you know, it was just
Yeah.
compound, so many
Yeah.
things compound. So it was just trying to break away all of that and just look at how he actually felt in himself and how he could change that,
Yeah.
and sort of bring that down, and just try not to overwhelm him with the strategy and give him something much simpler to focus on.
Yeah, I like it, and it's very simple as well. I like that concept, because I think simple is the best way to sort something out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, if it's okay with you, Kay, I'd like to leave it there, because I need time to process this, and I'm sure Ayesha will be interested in what you're talking about today. And I think a lot of parents, and even people who, you know, maybe found out that they've got, you know, could be on that autistic spectrum, it could help them in later life.
Yeah, could do. I mean, I've got people in their, I think, sort of 50s and 60s are reading this, where they've had broken families, you know, come from perhaps broken families, and then as a result, their families have become broken families, and you know, they're looking at, well, they know that it's because they didn't have the right upbringing, the right example. What did they miss out on? Because when you've got these broken families, and that's more and more common these days, is, you know, there's so many questions and unanswered things. And like my son had the Asperger's and all those sort of inability to comprehend why he didn't fit in and felt different and everything. There's emotions that go with everything that happens to children.
Absolutely.
But again, it was for him as an adult, still sitting there reflecting on things that had happened to him as a child. This particular client I've got reading it, and it's given him a chance to reflect back and see why he struggled growing up, and then why he struggled as a father, in hopes that now as a grandfather he can resolve some of his challenges and make life better going forward. Because one of the things I've heard about this last year, and I hadn't heard of it until recently, was generational healing, and about how we carry the pains forward through the different generations. And it's taken a while for me to get my head around that one, and it was like, do you know what, actually, yeah, I can see it, I can see why. And again, any generation where they start that healing process will heal going forward as well. And there's you know, there's no good excuse in the world to not make self-improvement.
I know. I think
and to heal.
If we can start working with you, and then we start working with one more person, then you'll create change, and it will flow through anyone and everyone that you meet. You can't help but change, you know. I think once you've, you know, gone through something that you have, and you've created something which has got changed someone's life, the passion to change that and to share it is going to be there for life, Kay.
So definitely, I can't just shut it off.
No.
I could not shut this off once it was in my head, and that resulted in other challenges for me in my personal life, because not everybody in my life wanted me to have all this going on in my head. So I've lost people along the way, but sometimes that's the price to pay of helping others, is have to make some sacrifices, you know.
Absolutely. But do you not think also, Kay, though, as we choose to let those people go, that leaves space for the different people to come in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing where it all goes. So
I'm absolutely so looking forward to this, and I'm looking forward to learn out more about it. And I think what I'd like to do when I get a copy of your book is maybe then we'd talk about, say, each chapter or each. I don't know how it's out yet, but That'd be interesting to
that's
see
a good
how it
idea,
unfolds.
actually. Yeah, because one of the things I've thought about, but I think I just need to get enough people reading the book first, is maybe do like a monthly book club or something where people can come along and ask.
Yeah.
Just talk about it,
Yeah.
just like meet the author type club.
Yeah.
But yeah, when people come along and ask.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Kay. I'm looking forward to that. And what I'll do, I'll pass on your details, and for anyone else who wants to get in touch with you, Kay, do you want to give your details again?
Oh yes, it's kayreeve.co.uk, and Brain Unchained. This one available on Amazon. I've still got my thingy stuck in there, sorry. So yeah, it's on 13 different countries, so wherever you are in the world, that's there.
Excellent, well done. Thank you.
Yeah,
and
thank
I
you.
should look forward to seeing how this unfolds, because I think there's a lot of very special children out there right now would really appreciate a simple way of understanding.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Thank
looking
you,
forward
Kay.
to it.
And thank you so much for
Dawn.
sharing that. And I'll speak to you really soon. If you could just hang in there for a few minutes after we stop recording, okay? And we'll talk about the next chapter.
Okay.
Thanks, lovely. Okay. Thanks, love. Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.